Hey there guys, this is Obsidian Chill. I've got another video for you today. Now I don't typically do things like this. This is a follow-up video to my previous one. There was going through the comment section, I really felt the need to make a follow-up video. There are some massive misconceptions and moronic statements that I just had to clear up. There's not going to be ads on this one. The background footage is just going to be some raid footage from a happier time in this game. If you haven't seen that previous video, I'll link it here just so you can see it. But it was just revolving around a new type of artifact swap that you could do to keep up with Prec DPS as a Might DPS. And I wanted to cover that because that's who I am in the community. Anything and everything to do with artifacts, I always cover. Whether it be changes, balance, opinions, broken things. I'm pretty much the only person that does this in community. So obviously I'm going to cover it in a video. And obviously I know artifact swapping is a hot button topic and people have a lot of strong opinions on it, which is fine. But some of those opinions are completely baseless in merit. So the main point of view I want to cover here is that everyone referring to artifact swapping as exploiting. That's a completely ridiculous statement to have. Nothing to do with artifacts is exploiting. What actually is an artifact exploit is back when you could use the fortify menu to fortify soders and anything into free artifact XP. The cork glitch, the repay back glitch, or duplications. Those are exploits in DC, and you get suspended and banned from the money glitches, trading money, all that kind of stuff. The reason why we don't have LinkedIn, the reason why we can't trade money between characters is exploits. That's not, so you're saying that that's the exact same as what artifact swapping is, even though artifact swapping or inventory swapping has been around since beta. Ever since we got a utility belt, we could swap in consumables, henchmen, pets, whatever. We opened up our inventory in combat to change our orbitals, to change everything else, because utility belts back then had either like 2 consumable slots, 2 trinkets, or 3 trinkets in a wild card. So you had to swap to basically maximize what your utility belt options were, because you didn't have 4 wildcards. You couldn't have the choice of what to include. You were restricted based on whatever utility belt that dropped, and usually the one that had the highest stats also had some weird combination. So our inventory swapping has been around forever. No one had a problem with it back then. You could also do consumable clipping. No one had a problem with that back then. Now all of a sudden people have an issue with artifact swapping because there's so many artifacts giving so many different advantages at the same time. It's like, oh, well, now it's not fair because I can't do that or don't want to do that. That's what the statements are. The developers that designed, Bertuba that designed artifacts, everyone that has touched artifacts since 2018 when they came out, they've worked the exact same. Nothing has changed with artifacts. If we want to argue that the developers can't create proper artifacts where the buffs don't last or only last while it's equipped, that's nothing to do with players. As much as I love the developers, that's just their incompetence, that they can't create any kind of system that is in place where the buffs don't last. If I take off Tetra or take off Cog, the buff stops instead of lasting for 12 seconds. That's not a player's fault. We have no control over that. That's how they design the artifacts. That's how they release them. If they can't change it, that's not an exploit. That's just them working as intended. That's the way the artifacts are designed. The easiest example I can think of this is look at Lazarus Pit Water. The whole addition to Lazarus Pit Water that was specifically made to make the artifact more popular and more used when they refreshed those 6 artifacts. Everyone on the forums, YouTube, test servers said, you can swap like this. And if you swap it, it makes you invulnerable because of that's how artifacts work. The buff will last after equipped, except that you don't have the disadvantage of Lazarus Pit healing you, basically because the artifact's not equipped. So you don't die because it's not equipped. You can heal yourself or don't have the reduction from heals. Everyone said that. Guess what? It was still released the exact same way. Why? Because that's just how it was designed. If the developer could have changed that, I'm sure they would have, but we're talking 5 years now. Obviously, them changing or adding that tech to artifacts is a low priority, or if not even a priority at all, or they're not even going to do it at all because it doesn't matter to them. So how can that be considered exploiting when it's been around for 5 years? Everyone's known about it. It's not some secret. Everyone shared it because that's just how it's always worked. Doesn't mean that things can't be balanced. And that's where my opinions come in, and that's where my videos and everything I push for to come in. So you think artifact swapping is exploiting, and you want the inventory locked so that no one can swap artifacts. but then you won't let us change and balance Eye of the Gemini because you paid for it. So we can't do anything. You want artifact swapping taken away, inventory locked because you don't want to swap, and because it's unfair that other people can do that. So since they can do that and you can't, okay, no, just lock it, take it away. But then we can't adjust Eye of the Gemini, even though those same endgame players that are artifact swapping that you don't want to and want to take that ability away from them, even they're saying change Eye of the Gemini and that's broken. You can have broken and unbalanced artifacts where that situation, that unbalance is created by swapping. Doesn't mean take swapping away or remove it or call it an exploit when it's not. It just means that we have to balance those artifacts, but apparently the community doesn't want that either. So when the fair releases for the balancing for Eye of the Gemini came out, there's that huge riots, and then they took it away. Now it's apparently going to come back on June the 1st, even though we haven't heard anything new about it since it was first taken away on test servers. I'm not even sure how that's going to work out. But at the same point, balancing is something that needs to happen with artifacts. Balancing is something that needs to happen with artifact swapping. Artifact swapping is just something that you can do as a player to expand on your role. So if you're a tank and if you're an atomic tank and want to keep using mass density because it's helpful for the group, you need to run scrap and Eye of the Gemini. That's just the way it works now. So if you're swapping, if you want to have manacles or want to have mystic or whatever, you can swap in scrap right before you use mass density to get that bonus, and then take scrap off. It's something you have to do. It's just a play style that you want to do to expand upon your role and help the group. That's what buff trolling is. All these controllers swapping like 10, 11 artifacts, they're not doing it for themselves, they're doing it for the group. Swapping Claw, swapping Tetra, Cog, Bop, Rings, Parasite doesn't help the troller. It just helps the group. They get the better buff. So content gets through faster, whatever, the DPS do more damage. The troll is expanding upon their role, helping the group. Same thing with healers swapping like Clarion or Starheart. They don't have to swap Clarion or Starheart. They don't have to do that, but they're expanding upon their role to give an extra shield, to give an extra health buff, which then in turn buffs everything else. So that's all artifact swapping is. It's just expanding upon your role to make your gaming experience for the group or yourself better. Same thing as a DPS. You're just swapping different artifacts to increase your damage because that's your role as a DPS. Yes, there's going to be toxicity to it because not everyone's going to be able to do it. But that's just how it is in the game. Doesn't mean that the things don't have to be balanced. There's balance that definitely needs to happen with artifacts. But apparently the community doesn't want that balance to happen. You can go back and the people want to call me a hypocrite about Eye of the Gemini saying that I want to change it but still use it. Go back in my channel, and for the past, I think since 2018, so for the past 5 years, since Eye of the Gemini was released, I've covered videos saying it's been broken, as basically ridiculously broken and needs to be adjusted. I am the only person that said that the entire time. My point of view on Eye of the Gemini has not changed. Some people have started playing this game. Some of these players only know Eye of the Gemini because they've been playing DC since 2018. So all they've ever known is the way Eye of the Gemini is right now. And I've literally said this entire time that it needs to be changed. And every time a change needs to happen, the game changes something else. They nerf healer supercharges or they nerf nature. Eye of the Gemini need to be fixed. So instead they ruin nature DPS by taking away wolf and gorilla buffs and changing those supercharges around dog form, bug form. And now they had to release a nature poison ivy ally just to bring nature back to what it was before. So you kill nature DPS and then you have to release an ally to bring nature back somewhat to what it was before. All because of Eye of the Gemini. So I'm not intending this video to be coming to an Eye of the Gemini. I think I'm just using that as an example. So artifact swapping, just to summarize, because I'm not trying to make this like a 10-15 minute video. It's probably going to be 10 minutes anyway. But to summarize this, artifact swapping is not exploiting. Nothing remotely, anything to do with artifact swapping is not exploiting. Does that mean that it's unbalanced? No. Artifact swapping is definitely unbalanced, 100%. And that needs to change. But the community needs to allow those changes to start with Eye of the Gemini. How are we supposed to balance power sets in terms of their damage or supercharges or do weapons pass for precision? How are we supposed to do any of that with broken artifacts? If we have artifacts start to be balanced properly, then we can start to balance the rest of the game and correct it the way it was before. So whatever, if you want to, go off in these comments as well, just like the previous video, by all means, but, just properly educate yourself on what the actual argument is before you do that. So take care. We'll see you in the next proper video. Next one is going to be the DPS buffs, and then quick commentary on the anniversary of Origin Crisis. So take care, guys. We'll see you in the next video.